Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. and the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations. We're looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as many of you know that watch the Emerald Planet, that we're going to 9 billion souls. That's right, 9 billion souls on the planet. And we're adding 2 billion by 2050. So how are we going to take care of all these new people that are going to be joining us, plus take care and increase the standard of living for those that are already here? And so this is a real challenge. So the basic infrastructure as far as the roads, the airports, the seaports, education, healthcare, but also in the areas of construction, sanitation, water, and hygiene. And so we have two gentlemen sitting with me that have absolutely a revolutionary, but yet it's something that's very old. So they've reached back in history, pulling for maybe, I don't know, Steve, maybe 6,000 years or something like that. And so we're going to be looking at what's going on here. But sitting right beside me is Stephen L. Colley, who is the chairman and CEO, TerraBuilt Corporation International, and I put the tagline on here, Sustainable Building Systems. I hope you don't mind I changed your name a little bit, Steve. And then Dr. John Jed D. Schilling, who is the Senior Advisor and Trustee at the Millennium Institute, and also he is one of the underwriters for TerraBuilt. So Steve and Jed, glad to have you here.
Thank you, Sam.
Pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you. And we're going to go to a short clip, and if we can bring up the video, and I think that's about 1.5 minutes, and then we're going to come in and talk about what's going on as far as TerraBuilt.
Technology-stabilized earth building system that reflects years of patient engineering research, materials analysis, and ancient proven building principles. People from any country can learn quickly how to use the TerraBuilt system. The heart of the process is an easy-to-use machine, the Green Machine, that can rapidly produce highly compressed structural blocks engineered to exacting tolerances. Before this machine, dry stack systems were thwarted by a lack of precision. These blocks are made completely from locally available subsoil material mixed with a small percentage of cement. The careful design of these structural blocks enables them to form an interlocked mortar-free wall system that is stable, strong, and extremely energy efficient. Structures can resist hurricane winds of more than 120 miles per hour and earthquakes of at least 2A classification. These walls combine to make beautiful buildings, houses, clinics, dormitories, or schools, all produced using a building system that is environmentally friendly and affordable. It's the answer for durable, affordable, and environmentally responsible building, and it is here today, ready to build for tomorrow. TerraBuilt, the answer to sustainable building.
Absolutely fantastic. That was a great overview. I'm not sure why we have us sitting here, but we'll carry on anyway. But tell us a little bit about TerraBuilt, some of its history, and how did you bring forward some, and I was not exaggerating, I think it goes back in time 5,000-6,000 years, brick construction. So how did you rediscover all this?
Thank you, Sam. Indeed, it is a technology solution for sustainable building and energy saving. I'm fortunate to have a team of very experienced professionals and agents. Jed sitting next to me, a friend and an early on investor, something on the order of 30 years. And then many others. The technical piece of this, thanks to Lawrence Jetter in Texas, and my colleagues Bob Parra, Ben Orman, Tony Sullivan, Michael Colopy, and in the Middle East, Louay El-Swady and Ghazi Alawi. I'm simply very lucky to have such a cadre of very capable people.
Well, you're blessed. And I'm going to stay with you, Steve, because if we can bring back that slide, they talk about the green machine, and all of a sudden I see it in red. So I know that's not a color. So tell us about the color scheme, because I know in most of your literature it is the green machine.
The green machine is the forerunner. The concept was a tongue and groove for simplistic, single-story construction, mortarless, no need for mortar. But as we've moved forward, it was clear that a machine that's going to be more productive, the green machine will do 3, maybe if pushed 4 blocks a minute, whereas the red machine you see pictured there is capable of 8. This would be a collaborative effort with the factory in Texas. And the intent here with the red machine and the block you see sitting on the slide is for multi-story building, 2-story, 3-story, 5, 10-story. Prospectively, it's going to change the dynamics of construction, supplanting masonry products in many high-rise buildings.
I think it's fantastic. Now, looking at this one, this is the one that's your claim to fame as far as this particular block is concerned. Explain that to us a little bit, and then we're going to go to Jed and get him involved in a conversation.
Sam, what's important here is dimensional accuracy. The absent dimensional accuracy, you could not produce a tongue and groove that's going to make sense. The green machine is the forerunner of a dimensional accurate compressed earth block. And I should add, as you've alluded, compressed earth blocks go back thousands of years, but it wasn't until the 1970s that hydraulic machines were used. And then just recently, the ability to compress dimensionally accurate, which with soil is difficult but achievable in this patented instance.
Well, I think this is really interesting. Of course, now we're back to our green machine, I believe. But Jed, tell us a little bit about the Millennium Institute, which you're a part of, and then how did you transition and how you're working with TerraBuilt?
Okay, well, I've been with the Millennium Institute for 15 years, and until recently, my term ran out, I was the chairman of the board. I was very impressed with this because I started as an economist and recognized the importance of taking account of environmental factors. And the Millennium Institute has developed a system dynamic model that integrates economic, social, and environmental factors into a single framework and generates long-term scenarios. So you better understand how the real world works, because in the real world, everything connects to everything else. You can't just assume your sector or the economics are independent of everything else. So by learning those connections, which I'd also learned working on the ground in many developing countries, it is a better way of developing strategic plans that produce better development and greener development that protect the environment so that we don't get into worse problem and countries can adapt to climate change.
Yeah.
Now, I've known Steve, as he mentioned, for many, many years, and he's done a lot of very good work on environmental issues and helped convince me of the importance of taking those into account. But he's done some very innovative development with these little firms that he's set up, and I've invested in a couple of them before we came to TerraBuilt, and I was just very impressed with the TerraBuilt technology because it benefits the builders, it benefits the people whose houses they built, and it protects the environment. So it's one of these cases where everybody wins from the application of it.
Well, looking at this as far as TerraBuilt, and this is something that's looking at this machine here, I know that you're out working with the local community, Steve, and getting them involved, and so you're creating new jobs in a local area, but also we're millions of units short all over the globe, in Africa specifically, as far as housing is concerned. But just tell us what is going on in this photograph. This is a very busy picture, but it's a good snapshot of everything that goes on as far as making these Terra bricks.
This simply is an example of a bucket feeding the soil mix of soil and cement into the hopper of the green machine, which then extrudes the block coming out onto the roller, which will be off-taked by the fellow that you see standing there waiting for it, moved over to be set aside and stacked in the building shortly.
Yeah. And this is going to be these dry for a certain amount of days, I believe. Yeah. And this is what it actually looks like. Now, is this actually the flat brick, or is this the tongue and groove model?
This is the tongue and groove, actually located in a home about 15 miles from here in Falls Church.
In Virginia?
Yes.
In the United States, okay, because people not know maybe where Falls Church is. But looking at that, so this is something you can actually have in developed countries as well as developing countries then.
Indeed, yes.
So in looking at this, what is the advantage then in a place like the United States or say Western Europe or even a country like Japan? Very sophisticated building materials, long history of very tight codes. So how does this fit into the codes and the requirements of local communities?
Sam, it's code compliant here in the United States. It also conforms to the International Building Code. The advantages, as Jed has indicated, would be thermal efficiency, and we have found cost effectiveness. Here in the United States, it'll be slow to take off because we've got so many terrific building technologies. Overseas, where labor is abundant, resources are scarce. This is a technology whose time has come.
Yeah, Jed, looking at this, we see this small house and then you have this out structure here. I know that we're going to be talking about the brick as far as using it for sanitation, which is about 3.5 billion souls on the planet do not have this. But how long would it take to put a house like this up?
Well, once you've developed and applied the basic technology to the local soil, it takes 2 or 3 days to get the basic house stacked up with the bricks, and local people can do it with the brick machine right there. And then it'll take a few weeks to get the finished work with the roofing and the wiring and things like that done. But it takes no more time and usually less time than to build a conventional house of the same size.
Well, that's the whole thing about this, I think, Jed, is this actually is faster because you have all your superstructure up and get your roof on, and then you can finish it as you will. In many countries, as we know, Steve, is that people are actually finishing it, and this is one of the signs you have. So what do you have to go about as far as taking the soil, figuring how much cement, how much water, and all that as far as making the brick? And we're running out of time. Gotta be quick.
Most soils, Sam, where there's human habitation should be suitable or amendable. It is quite easy to quickly determine whether that soil is going to be usable. And then it's a question simply of digging it up. I'm talking subsoil, not topsoil. And mixing the cement if you're choosing to use cement, although you could go with 100% soil. Process it through the machine and begin building shortly thereafter.
I think it's absolutely fantastic, and we have absolutely run out of time. So, Steve and Jed, you see how fast this actually goes. And but I tell you, this is one of your houses here that was built in the local area. It's absolutely beautiful. And thank you for being with us as we're looking around the globe for new technologies that help us to build the Emerald Planet.
Some dreams are universal. Dreams that inspire us. Multiple sclerosis is a devastating disease that changes lives forever. The National MS Society does more for people with MS than any organization in the world. But we can't do it alone. To get involved, visit us online at nationalmssociety.org or call 1-800-FIGHT-MS. This is why we're here. Because nobody dreams of having multiple sclerosis.
What's wrong with this picture? Half of young Americans can't locate economic powers like Japan and India. 20% can't even find the Pacific Ocean. Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Geography is everywhere. It's incredible creatures, rhythm, fashion, flavor. It's economics and politics. It's change. Understanding connections between people and places is critical in the 21st century. That's why we created mywonderfulworld.org. Go there now for your free parent and teacher action kits and give our kids the power of global knowledge. Because kids who understand our world today can succeed in it tomorrow.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. as we look around the globe for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And of course, we're looking for the people that are making a difference as we add 2 billion new people to the planet by 2050. So how are we going to be able to take care of all those basic human needs when we have about 7.5 billion right now? The essence of water, the food, the fuel, the fiber, and of course the housing goes into it. But one of the main challenges that we have is sanitation. There's been a big movement to bring water into least developing countries all around the globe. So now we've actually gone under 1 billion people who do not have adequate water, which is a terrible tragedy. But you think about sanitation, it's almost 1/2 of the world's population, about 3.2, 3.5 billion people without proper sanitation. And so we have a couple here that have been working in the country of Kenya, and it's called Start With One Kenya, and I'm going to ask you about that, Bill, as far as that. And his wife, Chad, is sitting right beside him, and thank you for both of you being here.
Glad to be here.
And we have their logo. I think it's going to be coming up here, Start With One Kenya, if we can bring that up. And Bill, tell us a little bit about what is Start With One Kenya.
Taking the premise that we can make a difference in this world, I started doing research as to the issues going on in the world, and in particular Kenya. I'm one person, and what kind of difference can I make? I believe that we're called to do something, and the distance between integers, between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, so forth and so on, is the same. But I believe the distance from 0 to 1 is the greatest distance of all, because at 0 we're doing nothing. And I think the problems of the world can be solved.
Well, I tell you, I really like this logo that is up on the screen behind us in chat. What are some of the greatest challenges? He said you're only one, but actually you make a good team. And so what is it, 1 + 1 = 3, I think, when you're really getting the power of faith and understanding put together. So what are some of the greatest challenges you've had as far as Kenya itself is concerned?
I think it goes right back to what Bill said, start with one. Sometimes when you start looking at all the needs, it can get overwhelming. And you have to say, stop, take a deep breath, start with one. And when you start with one, you have to work with the Kenyans and say, what is it you want? And we have 5 pillars of work. And so in our 5 pillars, we have to stay focused of what do the Kenyans want, what are our 5 pillars, and take your first step.
Okay. Now, looking at chat view going, what are the 5 pillars?
So the 5 pillars that we've got, we do education, we do an entrepreneurial microfinance, clean water, building, and basically some agriculture for food development, and also healthcare. And on those, if you think about it, they kind of line up with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So what's the challenge? Staying focused, finding out what the Kenyans want, and then of course getting the financial resources to putting all those pieces of the puzzle together.
Well, it's like the old KISS method, keep it simply simple, right? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly the way we want to do that. Bill, looking at it, I know that you're very much involved in water, but what I've really wanted to talk with you about is the sanitation, because almost half the world's population does not have adequate sanitation or no sanitation.
That's
it's
correct.
The ground around the house or out in the field. That's or right. The nearest tree or what have you. And yet I know that you've been working with a group. It's called TerraBuilt Corporation International, and it's a sustainable building system. But you looked at it as a new way to do what?
Well, it's a game changer for us, because we're able to take the soil and some cement and create a block that is both structurally sound, and we can build anything with it. But we're doing eco-sanitation latrines, which is not new technology in the world, but what it is giving us the ability to lower the cost of building a latrine, to make a composting latrine, taking what the world considers as waste and turning it into something that's good in compost and fertilizer for sustainable farming.
Yeah, and we're going to show this in a minute, but I tell you, this is an incredible machine. This is what I understand, Bill, is called the Green Machine. Tell us what is going on here, because people are very active. They're in the middle of what looks like a cornfield. And tell us what's happening.
Well, what's happening in this picture is they're producing blocks. We've had to harvest the soil, sieve it so that it gets all the rocks out of it. We've added 10% cement to it, sand if needed, and then the machine compresses that at 1,200 pounds per square inch pressure, and then it ejects one block every 15 seconds.
I tell you, this is absolutely incredible, and I know this is one of the things that I was very impressed the first time we met, is actually that you can actually teach people in these local communities, so they start doing this themselves. It's not like we're exporting this from the United States or Western Europe, but they're actually using their own soil, their own labor, and building their own homes, and the eco-sanity, as we're going to see in just a few minutes.
We want them to have a stake in their own future, and so yes, they've got sweat equity into their own toilet, basically.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And Chat, I know there's a couple of books that you had mentioned in our conversation, Toxic Charity and When Helping Hurts. Now, both of these give me great pain. So what is Toxic Charity and When Helping Hurts? How does this really fit into your organization and your attitude and these 5 pillars that you shared with us?
The basic premise of those books is don't rob someone of their human dignity. People are inventive, they're creative, and with just a little push, they can do a lot to improve their own lives. So what do we mean by that? Everything we do is we say, do not create dependency. Only help a little bit to create something that's sustainable in the long term. On that, I mean, basically, as I mentioned earlier, the 5 pillars. I mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to meet people where they are. So it's where are they, what do they need? Oftentimes, it's bringing in resources and then letting the Kenyans take the next step for them.
Yeah, and I really like the way that you speak, Chat, because you're really focused. You have start with One Kenya, but you really keep emphasizing that, wrap it around the society. And this is some of those blocks that you were making over there, Bill. And so how long does it they need to set like this? And then we're going to show where these are about ready to head.
Well, we can build with those bricks in about a day and a half to 3 days. They get a little harder as time goes on because of the cement content in it. But 3 days, and we can build almost anything with it.
This is absolutely incredible. So you're just taking soil, a little bit of cement, a tiny little bit of water, I understand, and making these bricks, and then this is something you're going to build, and it's going to be there for many years to come.
And as Chat calls these, adult Legos.
Adult Legos.
Because you just stack them. You see that they're tongue and groove, and they lock together, and there's no mortar in between each course.
Now, looking at the getting to what we really want to talk about, which is the sanitation and using these TerraBuilt bricks and block. This is something that I think is absolutely fantastic, because we have to get away as we provide more and more water for people. There's more and more waste. But we really haven't joined these two together, Bill, and I think this is what you're trying to do in Kenya.
Well, I think when you look at sanitation around the world, there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can have a linear system that assumes waste is waste and you're just trying to get rid of it. You have to treat that, and it still is affluent into the world. We're trying to create a closed system that is taking what the world considers as waste and turning it in, like I said earlier, into fertilizer. We have heard that as humans, we actually produce enough nitrogen and potassium and other nutrients that are what's needed to produce the food and the carbon footprint for us to be able to produce the food that we consume.
Yeah, well, I tell you, it's fantastic when you can do this, and then you come up with something that looks like this, and you take those brick. So Chat, being a lady and involved in this, but you're a very hands-on individual, as we saw those young ladies from the University of North Carolina, like that Carolina Blue. And how long does it take to put up something like this? And what did you have to go through in talking with not just the men, but the women and the children in these communities in Kenya to say, this is a good idea?
I think you just hit on one of the most important aspects. While one can be built in a week, the problem is if you have to do the training and the education first. Why do you want an eco latrine? Why is that better than the traditional pit latrine? A pit latrine is easy, so why do I want something that I now have to do maintenance on? So there's a huge educational component, but once you go through things and explain how actually, if you look at the whole circle when it comes to health care and food and everything, they don't realize many times that it's the feces that are carrying disease that then gets in their groundwater that makes them sick, which means they miss days of work and they then don't produce as much food. And it goes on and on.
It goes on and on. Looking at the back of this, we see these doors. Tell us a little bit about the biology and the chemistry of what we're looking at right here, Bill.
Well, those are two different chambers, and so you utilize.
I'm going to jump forward here just a little bit. We see the two guys helping to build this. I just
Well, they
love
have to
this
have
photo. I couldn't leave this out. This was too rich.
Well, that is
Put this in.
Sam. That is Sam and Rufus. They were helping build along with Peter to help build this. And we basically have two harvesting chambers. You utilize one half of the eco-sanitation latrine at a time. As you're using it, you add carbon, you add sawdust, you add ash, corn husks, whatever, carbon to help in the breakdown of the pathogens that are in human feces.
Yeah.
We also have a urine diversion, which is really important because if the feces stays wet, it smells, it draws flies. There are no flies and no smell with this latrine.
Yeah, these are amazing because I saw these as I shared with you in Mexico, and these are just, I couldn't resist putting this in. And tell these guys they'll be able to see themselves on international TV. But Chat, going over to the hygiene of this. This is WASH, so it's water, sanitation, hygiene. What's the hygiene and what's going on with these young ladies and also the young guys?
One of the things that amazes me is something that our generation grew up knowing from birth almost, and that is hand washing. So what they're doing here is we've done a whole class basically of hand washing, and also it goes back to the eco latrines. The fact, one of my favorite questions to ask in the middle of the hygiene presentation is, do you eat poop? And of course all the Kenyans go, oh, no! And then we go through, well, do you collect water off your roofs? Do you get the water out of the river? Go through a series of questions, and then we ask them again, do you eat poop? And then go, much their heart.
We only have a
yes.
few seconds, about 10 seconds, Bill. Where is your organization going over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
We hope that within 15 years, Kenya will have clean water, and I think it's attainable if we have the right partnerships in the world. Start with onekenya.org.
Well,
check us
thank
out.
you very much for being with us, Bill and Chat, as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, dear viewers. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, President and Executive Director of Emerald Planet and the Director and host of the Emerald Planet Inside Scoop television program, which we bring you each week. Emerald Planet is an international non-for-profit organization dedicated to identifying and sharing the 1,000 best practices in sustainable environmental and economic development across the globe. We are linking those who have successfully developed or discovered the latest advances to those in need. In spring 2014, Emerald Planet will begin its most ambitious project to date. Called the Emerald Trek, we will visit 144 countries over a 5-year period. Now, we need your help. As you may imagine, a historic journey of this depth and breadth is expensive. Please go to our website, www.emerald-planet.org, and press the donate button. That's www.emerald-planet.org and press the donate button. You can use your credit card or a check to support the Emerald Trek. All donations, large and small, will be most welcomed. Emerald Planet and I thank you.
Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Geography is everywhere. It's incredible creatures, rhythm, fashion, flavor. It's economics and politics. It's change. Understanding connections between people and places is critical in the 21st century. That's why we created mywonderfulworld.org. Go there now for your free parent and teacher action kits and give our kids the power of global knowledge. Because kids who understand our world today can succeed in it tomorrow.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations to look at ways that we can actually solve problems. The problems as far as water, sanitation, hygiene, and one of the huge problems that we have facing humankind and civilization is the scourge of malaria. And if you look at many of the countries around the globe that have malaria around the equator belt, it's just maybe 1 in 2 of the people within particular communities actually are infected by malaria. And so how do we actually, as we move forward in the 21st century, how do we take care of this scourge so that people are being productive citizens of their own local communities, and at the same time is that we're reducing the amount of time, the medicine, the expense, and the loss of human power as far as youth are concerned, and of course there's so many childhood deaths. We have a gentleman who's an expert. His name is David Pierce. He's a business development consultant with what's called Take Cover and of Duro Industries. And David, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Team Take Cover wants to thank you, Emerald Planet, for having us on the show.
Well, we're absolutely glad to have you here, Dave, and we're really pleased. And we have this map up here. Tell us a little bit about malaria, the scourge of malaria, and what it's doing as far as humankind is concerned.
Well, when you start looking at malaria, the disease, it's one of the worst diseases on the planet today. And I'd like to say that it's not just for a certain part of the world, it's the whole world. You know, George Washington had malaria, George Clooney has had malaria, so
that's right. It's in the temperate zones as well. You're absolutely correct.
Right. It is a challenge to try and come up with tools to be able to combat malaria, and that's what I call this the team. You know, we've been working as a collaborative team across several corporations to bring about a product that could work.
Yeah, and I wanted to really get into malaria because I want to bring up this next map that we have right here as far as, you know, the real hot spots as far as malaria is concerned. If we can bring this map up full scale, and then, but while we're doing that, what is Take Cover as far as a mosquito-resistant fabric?
Yeah, what we've taken is a chemical, patented microencapsulated permethrin. We have taken a patented staple fiber material. We've gone to yet another Duro Industries manufacturing plant, and we've proprietarily manufactured that into a finished textile product. And it has long-lasting efficacy to it. It's been tested, and we've just come out of, you know, I like to say in this story, when we were kids, we used to play a game of tag. And we just ran a trial with our U.S. military where we had a tech sergeant, calls himself the bug guy, took the blanket over there, and he called up and he said, I didn't get tagged. And I can't believe how lightweight it is. And I can't believe how comfortable it is. I can't, you know, and he went on, and then at the end, he just ended with, and it works. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
well, but we're going to talk more about this, but what are we seeing as far as this colored map? What's going on here, and what's the importance considering the red spots that we see?
When you look at that, you know, the World Health Organization starts rolling numbers at us to the tune of 3.3 billion people are at risk to malaria. You've got 1 million people that die annually to malaria. And I think what's even more critical in looking at that is you've got 3,000 children a day under the age of 5 die to malaria.
Yeah, I think this is an incredible story that we have here as far as these red zones. And as you said, almost half of the world's population are at risk as far as malaria is concerned. And so, this is really looking at what we have as far as the Latin America is concerned, Mexico all the way down to the tip of Argentina. And then, but this is really a very chilling map that you've shared with us.
It's a challenge where you look at a large number of people where every day food, water, shelter is a challenge every day. And then you take an insect that thrives in this environment and they're looking for a food source as well. So we try to say that we've generated a basic tool. We want to call it the next generation, if you will, of a product that's just it's a new model of how to produce a blanket, but it's going to give shelter. It's going to give you some resistance to being tagged
by the mosquito.
By the
mosquito's doing the tagging. Yes.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to have manufactured it under the protocols that are required to manufacture a product like this. It's a challenge to move forward. We're looking to complete the team. We need to connect with the philanthropic partner to come in. We need to connect with the distribution delivery partner team, and then we'll have it and we can start. The product's ready to go. We can start delivering product today.
Well, the whole thing about it, looking at these mosquito nets that we have here, and this is something that, as you said, almost half of the world's population actually need this kind of thing. So we go back to the blanket and we think, oh, people live, a lot of these are living in the tropical areas and all that, but there is a winter season, there is a summer season, and they need the blankets. And then when you have, you're trying to sleep at night, and having been in 82 countries, 60 of these in the developing world, believe me, although mosquitoes really don't like me, having a mosquito net, that's salvation, let me tell you, and you got to have it. So looking at what you have as far as this take cover and looking at the mosquito netting, how does this actually work? What's going on?
We've created a nearly intimate relationship between the microencapsulant chemical and the staple fiber material. There's almost a seamless marriage between the two of them in the proprietary manufacturing process. So what you have is, we define it as hot foot technology. When the mosquito will land on it, the first thing that'll happen is those microencapsulants will start breaking, and there'll be this sense of hot foot. So the mosquito will want to get off. It's an irritant, so they'll want to get off of it. But in the wanting to feed, then the next challenge is trying to get through the staple fiber to get to you to feed.
So what they can do is either they sense, see, smell, want to taste the human being, just like this young man is sitting here well protected in his mosquito netting, and that mosquito says, even though he's got a hot foot, he says, I still want to get in there because I need dinner.
The chamber study we ran where you take the material tightly attached to your arm. This is disease-free mosquitoes, and you open the other end and these 4-day-old mosquitoes come in, female mosquitoes come in, and you watch them attack the material that hasn't been treated as opposed to the material that is treated, and you can watch them. It's called knock down and knock dead is the terminology. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to knock them down or knock them dead.
Yeah, and looking at this, this is just incredible. And of course, Rotary International has very much been involved in this for a number of years now because of actually going for Polio Plus, which is eradicate polio, but the next one really is malaria. And of course, as you try to bring more and more water and sanitation to places, it doesn't mean that you're eradicating necessarily the mosquitoes from in those areas. So looking at like a group, Rotary International, or any nonprofit, say like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a World Health Organization, which is a super governmental organization, how do you actually work with them so that we can get this material out to people so it's actually making a difference around the globe, because it's eliminating the mosquito at the same time as providing protection? Is that right, David?
That is correct. It's it's two structured. We've got to, one, produce the tool and have the validation that the tool works. Then we have to go through the protocols that are required for the tool, and then you get into the delivery and distribution of that tool. A point I'd like to make is when you look at this demand for shelter, in a largest number of cases, a blanket might be the only possession somebody has. And they use this blanket to carry all of their personal belongings and or their child. And this is a product that has the ability to do that shelter, because maybe you can't hang a net. Maybe you don't have the ability to have insecticidal residual spraying. These are all tools. These are all vector tools. The blanket is not meant to displace or take anything. It's just to take its seat at the table and be one of these vector tools.
Yeah, and when we were talking about your particular aspect of being with the television program, it's really as far as how do you have it's really more mosquito control. One is to keep them away from the human beings, but at the same time, like you said, is that to knock dead so that you're actually eliminating the mosquito. And because there's millions of these, but at the same time, as I understand it, that the product is totally benign, it's all natural, and that the other insects and the other animals in the area that actually feed, like bats and others that feed on mosquitoes, it really wouldn't hurt them because it's eliminating the mosquito. At the same time, it allows the natural process to work within the local community.
Yeah, that's testing has represented the amount of the product that you would have to ingest to then have some type of a reaction. Because we've made all types of prototypes, a dog bed shell, for example. And if the dog ate the entire blanket, the entire shell, he probably wouldn't feel good from having eaten all that staple fiber, but
would not be
the permethrin is, the greatest thing that can happen to you in the use of this project is potentially a rash.
Yeah. Well, we've absolutely run out of time. This is fascinating because malaria is one of the topics that we keep going back to in Emerald Planet because it really is one of the scourges of the earth. We need to figure out how to eliminate it and at the same time to eliminate the mosquito, because as you look at this young child on the back in this blanket, hopefully this is a way to really protect them. So David Pierce, the business development consultant for Take Cover Your Industries, we thank you for being with us. And thank you for watching here in the United States and around the globe as we look around to new technologies, processes, and products as we create the Emerald Planet.
There's more than just books at the library.
There's more than just books at the library.
Excuse me.
There's more than just books at the library.
Il n'y a plus que de livres à la bibliothèque.
Hello. You have a lot of great books here today. You know there's more than just books at the library.
I know.
There's more than just books at the library.
I don't want to be hooked to a machine.
I want all the medical treatment available to me.
I wouldn't want my family to have to make this decision.
My doctor knows what's best for me.
An advance directive is your life on your terms. Talk with your family. Decide what's right for you. Then put it in writing.
Documenting my wishes today means my family won't have to make heart-wrenching decisions later.
To learn more, visit www.putitinwriting.org.
1,200 American youth run away from their homes every day. The National Runaway Switchboard is here to help. 1-800-RUNAWAY. If you are a runaway, thinking about running away from home, or a parent or guardian concerned about issues facing your child, call us 24 hours a day. 1-800-RUNAWAY. In times of crisis, hope is just a phone call away. 1-800
Back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President, Executive Director of Emerald Planet and the Director and host for Emerald Planet TV. We're coming to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move forward in the 21st century. And some of the leaders as far as dealing with the basic infrastructure, the food, the fuel, the fiber, also the water and sanitation, the hygiene, are really coming out of the nonprofit world. There are many for-profit organizations, companies, that are making a difference and working hard, but yet if you look at some of the change agents and those that are being very proactive in at-risk communities, it's coming out of the NGO, non-governmental organizations, and nonprofits. And we have a very dynamic woman who has been very much involved in the country of Kenya and other countries. Anne French is the Director of Humanitarian Outreach and Missions at the Peachtree Road United Methodist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. And then sitting with me right here is William Bill Coble, who is a co-founder of what's called Start With One Kenya. And since Anne's coming in by Skype, and Bill's going to be here as a Skype backup, so hopefully Anne will be able to keep you with us. But thank you for joining us from Atlanta, Georgia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm starting off with this very first photograph here, and this really goes to the heart of what you're doing at Peachtree United Methodist Church as far as working with Bill and to Start With One Kenya on water and sanitation and hygiene. And what are we looking at here, Anne?
We're looking at a small child who's just come from her source of water, and that is that puddle behind her, where she has gathered water for her family and is now taking it back to her family for their water source for the day.
Well, and it's just incredible that people can walk 2.5 miles one way to have a source of water. It looks just like this, and this is by the tens of millions, not just a few people. Is that right, Anne?
That is correct. That is exactly correct. This picture actually was after our first distribution of the water filters. We came across these children in this water, collecting their water for their families with their containers.
Well, the one thing about this is when you look at what's going on, and as far as the slide here we have, and if we can bring up this slide, because I think this is something that you and Bill are both involved in, working together with the Start With One Kenya, is really you have to educate people as far as, you know, the water is concerned and what is really good for you and actually what's not good for you. So tell us about what you're doing, Anne, as far as reaching into these communities to help. If we could bring up this slide, I would like, there we go. Yes, Anne?
Yes, that's correct. Education is a big part of what we're doing, but we're trying to get out to the people and bring them a portable, in-home filtration system, but more importantly, we need to educate them as to why the water is making them sick. And what has astounded us is that many people don't understand that there are microbes that are in their water that's making them sick, and that is the reason why their children are dying, and some of them are becoming so ill they cannot work many days.
Well, looking at this, these two slides here side by side, tell us what we're looking at with these orange buckets that we have. And then I think the one to our right as we're looking at this is really to the health of the children. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, you see a woman standing there with her 2 buckets. She has just received a water filter. She has gone through our training of how the filter works and what the sanitation and hygiene presentation that we do along with that. That's a very important component to the water filter distribution. So now she has her water filter. She is headed home and will be able to provide clean water for her family for her lifetime. And
I think it's just incredible, and I'm going to have Bill actually ask a question of this, but it's amazing the longevity of these filters, and yet how inexpensive they are at the same time.
That's correct. For $60, you can purchase one of these units, and that will include the buckets, the filter itself, the hygiene presentation, us delivering it to the home, and it will provide clean water, as I said, for their lifetime.
Yeah, and Bill, I know that we've been able to keep Ann on. We haven't had any disruption as far as Skype is concerned, so why don't you ask the next question?
Ann, how you doing?
Great, how are you?
So I want to tell everybody how much or how many gallons of water each of the filters will provide, how many people have received filters, and how many people have been impacted by those filters.
Well, we started with a distribution of 50, and we've now distributed over 1,500, close to 2,000 filters throughout Kenya. The water filter will work as long as you're pouring dirty water into it. It will clean that water cleaner than the water we buy here in the States in the grocery store all day long. As long as you clean the filter, which is a very simple process of just back flushing it with some clean water and then reattaching it. But as long as that filter is clean, you can pour water through it all day long.
Well, Ann, looking at the environment that you and Bill both are working in, I mean, it's just amazing, because if you look at the backdrop of this is actually at a local dump where many people actually, that's about the only way they can actually earn income is being involved with recycling. But yet they can actually, because of the portability of this, it looks like you can produce water just about anywhere you are on the planet.
Absolutely. And it is small, efficient, and it's very cost effective for what it produces and delivers to the people in these desperate situations.
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. And look at the face of this lady and the young girl there with her clean water. I understand that you said earlier it's about $60 US for each one of these filters. And I think I read it correctly that you can actually clean almost up to 1 million gallons of water with one of these filters?
That is correct. That is correct.
That is absolutely incredible. Well, tell us, I'm going to leave this these two slides up for just a minute. Tell us about where you found the filters and how did you get on this idea of the filters, and then, of course, again, working with Bill, who we know is very much involved in providing the sanitation. So you're really the collaborator, but really the flip side of you're providing the water, and then he's working with you to provide the sanitation.
Right. We're partnering together, and we've been working on this together from the beginning of and finding the filter, and then taking it into the field, taking it to Kenya, and starting the distribution. Like I said, we started with 50. In last March, in 2013, we did a distribution in one day of 200 filters that would service over 5,000 people in one IDP camp. IDP camps are internally displaced people.
Yeah, and we know this is really happening. There's, my understanding, about 34 what they call low-level, some kind of conflict on the African continent among the 54 nations. So that means that really almost the majority of the population somewhere are being touched by war or some kind of internal conflict that's going on. But one of the things I did a seminar with some Congolese pastors once, and we showed them this clean water like you have in this photograph, and one of the guys literally started crying. He says, my people, even they're 50 or 60 years old, have never seen clean water. So what is the response that you're getting from people when they go from where we saw that mud hole literally to something that looks very pure like we're looking at right now?
It's amazing, and the effects that it has had have been amazing, especially on the health of the people and the children especially, because the children just don't have the immune systems to fight all of these parasites and microbes that are in the water, especially when they're looking at a puddle to get their water from. So the effects have just been amazing, and Bill and his wife Chat, who live in Kenya, work hand in hand with the leaders in the government there and the health officials. And they've gotten unbelievable reports back about how effective this has been in the health and well-being of the people of Kenya.
Well, since we have Bill here, and he did, in a sense, come all the way from Kenya to be on the Emerald Planet TV, if we can bring the slide back and look at this camp. Bill, what are we looking at here as far as the numbers of people, and what is this?
This is an internally displaced refugee camp that was created because the government of Kenya removed people from the forest because they were worried about deforestation. So there's over 5,000 people in this camp. First time we arrived at this camp, we were overwhelmed. We knew very quickly that their health issues were going to start rising up, and clean water was not to be found anywhere. A water source, the closest, was about 5 miles away.
5 miles away, my goodness, that's incredible.
And so the first time we took Ann to this camp was an amazing day for Ann, and I think it kind of changed her life a little bit too.
I tell you, it changed anybody when you see this, that, you know, people living like this, and I mean, these are really dire circumstances, and you look at I mean, this is a close-up of what these people are living in, and it's just amazing you're providing these filters for people, what we're looking at right here, and this almost will last throughout their lifetime.
That is correct, and that is the amazing impact that is happening. And they understand that if they take good care of this filter, that it can last for their lifetime. And the reports are showing we do have somebody that comes back to the areas to make sure that the families are using the filters properly and that they've seen drastic positive effects in their health, and those reports are coming back that they are using them, they are taking care of them, and they are having much better health.
And Sam, if I could interrupt, that
yes.
camp, we were after we did our first distribution in that camp, there were 2 medical officers that were from the government that were stationed there. We got a phone call 10 days later and said their job was done, because the dysentery, typhoid, and cholera had been completely wiped out within 10 days.
That's incredible. And we only have about 15 seconds left. What about hygiene and the importance of teaching hygiene? And we got to be quick.
Yeah, well, and to say that, you know, 5 out of the 5 top killers in Kenya, 3 of them come from water. So cleaning water is such an important aspect of the health and well-being. And along with that, the simple steps of hygiene, washing your hands, and simple things to do to make their lives so
and
much.
We're going to have to leave you in Atlanta, Georgia. We're here in Washington, D.C. Thank you for being with us on the Emerald Planet.